Hey, come on. It's Wednesday. It's 9 p.m. It's on the Bywire. You know who I am. It's Dan Lewis. What's good, people? How are we doing? I hope you are all keeping it real and feeling the good energy coming from the weekend ahead of us. I love that vibe on a Wednesday where it's like, boom, 2 days, Friday, let's do this. Woo, I get excited. Sorry, people. Now, listen, okay, first of all, I'm going to get on a serious note. I want to just take a moment at the beginning of the show to remember Jo Cox, who was a Labour MP, and she was tragically murdered by a far-right terrorist in June 2016. Now, for many people on that day, it will never be forgotten. While so many people were busy campaigning for the upcoming EU referendum, no one expected the news that came through. Now, I'm pretty clear about where my politics lie, and I'm not one to shy away from a political debate. I love that in the UK, we do have the freedom to have our own political views, and we're able to talk about them in public, even stand to be elected in public elections on the policies that we believe in. Now, there is generally not any fear for doing as such. But over the last 10 years, there has been an increase in tensions across the political spectrum. And I think that we need to remember that our politics may define us. Our views on the world may lead us in how we behave, but we do not put our politics before our humanity. When I visit my local off-license, the owner may be of a different political view to me, but he'll still sell me my cigs and skins. My bus driver might not agree with my views on sex work or benefits, but that doesn't mean she won't drive me to where I need to go. The world keeps spinning every day, and no one on this earth should need to worry about not seeing the next day because they are a socialist or that they don't believe that people should get benefits. We can all have jokes and get into some heated debates, but remember, we all keep this world spinning, except the rich. Those big bad billionaires rely on us to keep the world spinning while they do nothing. So, it is what it is. But real talk though, let's just have a think about how what we say can have an impact on other people. Be the good you wish to see in the world. It is absolutely fine to get angry, give it your all, stand up and fight for what you believe in. But remember that afterwards, we've all got to get back to work in the morning and keep that world spinning. Now, talking of the world and the news of the world, Murdoch and Brooks have been in the news again, specifically the Byline Times. Brian Cathcart has provided us with a brilliant piece on why the independent panel report on the Daniel Morgan case proves law-breaking and wrongdoing by the press. Brian doesn't end there, as the piece goes on to explain how, just like many times before, the mainstream media will ignore this as if it wasn't there. It's a reoccurring theme, and I really enjoyed reading Brian's explanation on how deep this issue really is. It also gives me a perfect opportunity to promote our website, bywire.news, where you can find the latest and most fantastic independent news and media. Many of our partners rely solely on the support of their viewers or readers or listeners, which means you. So please do consider donating where you can. And as Dev said yesterday on the show, when you go to share that article from The Guardian or from the BBC or any other organization or big money organization, consider sharing a better article from the fantastic independent media journalists on our website. That's bywire.news. Now you can also find donate buttons on all of those websites and on bywire.news. Make a small donation or a big one. I don't mind. I like big ones. Big donations are great, but all donations are fantastic. And, support the thing, become a part of it, take ownership of the media and support people who are trying to really actually tell you stories that are going on and not a narrative set by really rich people living on islands in big mansions, paying no taxes anywhere at all in the world. Now, moving on to another partner, the Canary. They've done us proud this week as per, but they're putting the shifts in, covering the Grenfell story and the continuing inquiry. Today, the headline is, see, I read this one, right? And I was like, what the? Like, honestly, like, so the headline is, Health and Safety Boss claims to have been unaware of report condemning Grenfell smoke vents. Fam, come on. Like, Real talk. Like, what is with these people being paid a lot of money to keep things running, keep people safe, and they fail to do exactly that? Now they're handed the answers on a gold china plate. Like, literally, there are campaign groups that will come to these people and say this is wrong, it needs to be fixed. And then when something goes wrong, and then there's an inquiry like there is now with Grenfell, they go, I was unaware of this matter. Oh well, I couldn't verify the information. You're in the position to verify the thing, man. Come on, like, seriously. Anyway, listen, it is covering the Grenfell inquiry. The Canary exposed exactly how inept those people were at doing this job. You know, you had one job, fam. It's like, it's worth a read, and definitely worth keeping an eye out for further developments on the inquiry from the Canary, because other mainstream channels will do a piece on the 14th of June and think that they've done their work that's needed for another year. Like, literally, they'll turn up and film a couple of people who live in the area and be like, Grenfell done this year, good work, team. No, that's not it. There's an inquiry, there are lives, there are communities, there's all kinds going on, and it's fantastic to see the likes of the Canary, other independent media partners, really putting the work in to do that, telling the stories of real people, and not the stories of, well, the people who basically murdered 72 people. Now, finally, we're on to a podcast. Now, this one's saved in my subscriptions list. It's Politics Theory Other, and it's where they've shared a little teaser from Jeremy Gilbert today, responding to listener questions on Labour and left strategy. Now, just the 3 minutes that's there, I listened to it. It had me hooked. So I highly recommend you go and search for Politics Theory Other on SoundCloud. I think other platforms as well right now. And that's just a short clip of what's been going on in the independent media news world today. If you haven't checked it out, please make sure you do. I know I say it a lot, and I'll keep saying it, because independent media needs you. Independent media needs to be run by the people so it can be for the people, and definitely in the interest of the people. I know you've heard me say it before, and I'll probably say it again tomorrow and next week. Don't forget, we're on Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. Bywire, Facebook and YouTube channels. You know what it is. Come on. Now, we love to tell good stories about good people doing good things in this good world. And today we've got a little treat for you. Now, one of the things that's been, I would say, maybe it comes up in the news once every so often when people make a bit of noise about it, but I think it's something that we should all be thinking about all year round. And it's what the international politicians and international corporations are doing about the environment, because climate change is a massive issue, not just for you, not just for me, not just for our kids, but for their kids and their kids' kids and so forth. You know how it works. So that's why I'm so excited to have Kun from COP26 Coalition, who is going to explain to us a little bit about what the COP26 Coalition is, what COP26 is, and why you're involved in it. Now, Kun, thank you so much for coming and joining the show today. I appreciate you. You're logging in from Scotland, right?
Yes, I am. Thanks for inviting me, Dan. And
no
good
problem
to be here.
At all. Brilliant.
And yeah. Thanks everyone. From still sunny Scotland. It's still sunlight here.
Easy.
Yeah, my name's Wung. I'm the Scottish coordinator of the COP26 Coalition. The COP26 Coalition is a broad civil society alliance that tries to bring in more than the usual suspects to climate organizing. So not only people from Extinction Rebellion or the youth strikers or the classical NGOs, but also trade union groups, migrant justice groups, faith groups, and so on and so forth, to together form a strong response for transformative climate justice when COP26 arrives in Glasgow later this year. And maybe I can say a little bit about what COP26 is. I won't be too technical because it's
go for it, boring. Yeah.
But COP26 is going to happen this November. It's a major climate conference. It stands for Conference of the Parties. That's why it's COP, and it's the 26th time all nation states in the world who have signed up to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change are meeting up in Glasgow, and they're going to try to update the Paris Agreement, which was signed in 2015 in Paris, to find a new framework agreement to lead the world to keep global warming below 2 degrees or better if they can. So that is kind of what the COP process is, and they're going to try to yeah, like have every country announce their net zero targets that as much as possible, and their nationally determined contributions, which is basically just like every country coming out and say, I will do this. And yeah, and then Boris Johnson is going to claim he has saved the world. So if that is a law to take in, don't worry about it, because partly that is on purpose. They're gonna trash you with loads of technical terms like carbon pricing, carbon markets, net zero, negative emissions technologies, and stuff like that. And these kind of things are designed to make a deeply political issue that affects lots of political lives to a technical exercise of like accounting tricks, and that needs to be resisted. So if you hear these kind of terms, stop and just say, what is this? Is this bullshit? Is this like something weird? Because it definitely is. Because the climate crisis, as we all know by now, is not only like about polar bears, right? It's not only about like glaciers very far away melting. It's affecting people's lives and affecting communities across the world. Those who are least responsible for climate change are suffering the most from it. And that is mainly indigenous communities in the global south, people of color, people who are already poorest are suffering the most, whether that's globally or here in Scotland. Yeah, the poorest are suffering under fossil fuel infrastructure the most. So call these things out. And the climate crisis is both a symptom as well as a consequence of our failing economic system. So that you need to always remember that. Like without our economic system spiraling more and more out of control, there wouldn't be a climate crisis. And any solution that doesn't address that is not a real solution. So it's important that you do something individually, reduce your meat intake and so on, but without fundamental transformative system change to how our economy works, we won't fix this mess. And that's why COP26 is important. It's good that leaders around the world come together and talk, but they won't deliver what we need, which is climate justice, which is a solution to the root causes of the climate crisis. And yeah, the reason for why they're not going to do that is, as Dan has said, the rich need to keep the world spinning as it is. The corporations need to keep the world spinning as it is. Banks, fossil fuel companies, and so on. So that is why it's so important that you go out this November, take to the streets everywhere. If you want, come to Glasgow. I know it's a bit difficult with COVID. We're at the start of a third wave, and Boris Johnson has fucked it again. But yeah, so if possible, come to Glasgow and join us on the streets on the November the 6th, so that we can hold the powerful accountable across the world. But if not, talk to your friends, talk to your neighbors, talk to your community, and take to the streets in your town, regardless of where you are in the UK. Join local organizing hubs in Bristol, in Manchester, in Liverpool, in Brighton, or in Glasgow, Edinburgh, in Dundee, in the Highlands, wherever you are. You need to take to the streets and hold your councils, your MSPs, your MPs, and your government to account. Yeah, and that, yeah.
If you had a microphone, you could drop it right now, honestly.
Yeah, that was a bit of a rant. I'm sorry.
I'm energized right now. Come on, my guy. Oh my days. Like, so what have you guys, first of all, like COP26 coalition, are you another Extinction Rebellion, basically? Are you going to block off loads of streets and glue yourself to loads of really ridiculous things? Or have you got a bit of a plan? Is there, like, I'm not trying to have a go at Extinction Rebellion, by the way. There are good people involved with it. I'm just making a bit of light fun. But, what's your plan? Are you going to block up the streets and end up making Priti Patel make more laws to make it harder for everyone to protest? Or have you got something else planned? What's happening exactly in Glasgow as well?
Short educational thing: Priti Patel can't do criminal law in Scotland because that's separated. We have our own criminal law. Yeah. Just like a short intervention here, but which is helpful for any activists that come up north. But yeah, I think firstly, Extinction Rebellion is going to be there. They're going to block up roads. They're going to do their thing, obviously. But we are a broad coalition that tries to bring together both the Extinction Rebellion side and Royal Society for the Preservation of Birds. They have their important things. We need to all work together and keep our guns pointed outwards, not at each other, so that we can keep everything focused at the government. So regardless of whether you're with Extinction Rebellion or with a trade union, it's really important for the next coming month for us to work together. And the COP26 coalition itself we have done a lot of educational work on what the COP is, what different struggles of the world are, how indigenous communities would like to frame certain climate justice demands, because we believe that climate justice work should always be led by those who are most affected by the climate crisis, which is mainly people in the global south, indigenous communities. And we're planning for a global day of action on November the 6th. Before that, there's going to be hopefully a global climate strike by Fridays for Future on November the 5th, potentially joined by trade unionists across the world. And after that, we're going to organize a massive People's Summit, which is, because of Corona, going to be both online and offline. So if you're in Glasgow, you can join our local hubs, but we are also going to look to stream some of the content so that people who can't join from across the world can join in the conversation and listen to perspectives on the global climate negotiations and why they're not as fancy as Boris Johnson wants us to think they are.
I am fully vibes in with all of your plans on a real level. Like, I'm excited. That sounds really good. And I love, you're talking about unity there as well across, I think, there's a lot of movements, there's a lot of groups right now, and there's, different situations going on where people who should be on the same side are falling out with each other when it comes around these kind of issues. And I love that idea. Of just bringing people together and saying, look, this is our aim, do what you want to do, but let's work together to bring about the better good. And I suppose that's kind of a bit like Joe Cox's message. A beautiful day to really follow that up with and appreciate it. So Quan, thank you so much for coming on the show. Big thanks to COP26 Coalition. Big up all the people involved. And I've got to shout Camille as well, who did the little hook up, and Ollie Armstrong, two people who helped get me in contact with you so you could come on today. What we might do is we might get you guys back on the show closer to November. But if there's anything we can do on the Bywire, I'll be speaking to the journalists, like the independent partners, telling them to make sure they're up there covering it. But if there's anything we can do to help, holler at your boy.
You should come to Glasgow.
Maybe I'll present the show from Glasgow for a week. Yeah,
would be quite nice. Yeah, Glasgow special. See you in November.
Bro. Brilliant. Thank you so much. Have a great evening. I'll see you soon.
You too. See ya.
Bye. Wow. Oh my. Hey, come on. I love the vibes. You know what? That's what I need. I need them vibes every day. Like, just unity. Demanding climate justice. We've spoken a lot every night. We talk about some form of justice on this show, and this is why we do this beginning part of the show, where we talk about good people doing good things to make the world a better place, and that's exactly it. We want justice, climate justice in this situation. The other day we were talking about food justice. We talk about food a lot. I had some good donuts. I got distracted. Food. Anyway, listen, and also global action. That's the big thing, and I feel like there's a bit of a global vibe today because we're about to get into some global stories from our independent media partners, from my very good friend, Kulsoom Jafri, who is joining us from sunny London. Is it sunny or is it raining?
No, it's started raining now. It's been sunny all day, and the rain's just come down, which is a welcome thing, because it's been way too hot for me, let me tell you.
Oh man, for real talk, do you know what? Yeah, I love the hot weather. I love it. I can vibes with it all the time. But I fully get that, like, as the summers get hotter, there's clearly something not quite right about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's got to be incremental. It's nice when it's incremental.
Yeah, definitely. Now, Kulsoom, obviously you're involved with LARAF, which, as some may know, is Labour Against Racism, Fascism. You also just generally kind of pop up everywhere in all kinds of different protests and events and stuff. So thank you for taking the time out of your day to come and join us. And earlier on, you sent a few independent media articles that we're gonna have a look at, find out what's going on. What is first on the list? Who are we?
All right, I think it'd be really good to start at home and then kind of go global. So let's start with the article we've got from Union News. So basically, what's happened is So the title of the article is "Union Warns 4-Day Week Delay to Easing Lockdown is Devastating for the Culture Sector." Lockdown's lifting. Can't wait to go to drag brunch. Can't wait to go to a comedy gig or a jazz gig or just a gig in general. But really what we forget about are the creative workers, right? And how hard the creative workers work on normal times and how they've really had to adapt when it comes to the COVID crisis. The self-employment support scheme and kind of the furlough schemes that the government presented kept a lot of people above water, gave people the safety net that they needed. It wasn't enough. I'm never going to say it's enough, but creative workers especially have been hit really hard because the Culture Recovery Fund and the self-employment support scheme only covered about 40% of folks who were in the union Equity, and Equity is the union for creative workers. So it's really becoming clear that the industry that is kind of closed off first and is going to be the last to reopen aren't getting the support they need. And so this 4-week delay that Johnson's proposing is actually going to hard hit these workers especially. And I think what's really important to remember is that the unions and Equity are not encouraging, anything kind of worker against public health or public safety at all. It's really just about having the funds and the dignity to be able to give these creative workers what they need. And I think this is also a cultural kind of thing, right? There's no reason why respectable support shouldn't be given to folks working in the culture industry. Sometimes we think of work as people who make things or people who, provide our transport or do the day-to-day. But these workers, they are precarious. They're freelancers. They're on contracts. And although they don't create something in the way that we normally think of work as, creativity is essential to a thriving society. It's what we live off of as young people, as older people, as kids. It brings joy to our lives, and for people who bring joy to our lives, giving them back with the funds and resources that they deserve is really an important thing to do. So that's a little bit on that.
Boy, that was more than a little bit, but I'm grateful because you killed it. Like honestly, like everything you said, 100, bang bang, skeet skeet, mom. You know what I mean? Like it's real talk. Yeah, like I remember a week and a half before the first lockdown came in, I went to a gig in Manchester, and it was a vibe. Like I didn't even want to go to the gig, to be honest, because I wasn't that mad on the artist. Funny enough, now over lockdown, I've really gotten into that artist, but like. I'm so grateful that I had that opportunity to do that so soon before. And just a couple of weeks before that, I happened to be at an event called Bristol Transformed in Bristol with some really cool people. And again, like, I'm so grateful that I had the opportunity to be able to do that so close to before. But at that time, while we were all still unsure of what COVID was, the arts, people performing, people putting on events, all of that stuff, everyone was being very careful. Everyone was fully understanding that, to keep their distance. Like there was an elevator and people were going in the elevator like 2 or 3 at a time. And it was, you know what I mean? So I think that people are conscious, but people also need to feed their souls. They need to feed the arts energy in them. And, what is the world without arts?
100%. Absolutely.
Boy. So here it is in the UK, trying to get support for the arts. Where in the world are we going to next, Kulsoom?
All right, we're just going to expand just a little bit. So we're going to Europe.
Okay.
So there was a recent Open Democracy article, Homegrown European Funding for Religious Extremism Overshadows Foreign Cash. So it's really interesting because we normally think of these right-wing Christian evangelicals who are against, gay rights, LGBT plus rights, and women's rights to access to abortion, and general women's rights to work and things like that. We think they really come out of places like the United States or Russia, but in reality, these groups are being funded what Open Democracy is calling homegrown within Europe itself. So, very prominent places like Poland, for example, who have kind of a horrible record on homophobia. And I think the most interesting bit that the article points out is actually that US groups have become increasingly visible in Europe and export the decades of experience of the US Christian right on a range of issues such as fundraising and political mobilization to grassroots organizations. So, the left is very excited and interested in doing big organizing, as Bernie Sanders made popular, but the right wing is also taking kind of a a play out of the playbook of U.S. organizing from the right, which is actually really disturbing and really scary. But I think what's also really important to point out is that this culture war is fueled by neoliberalism, right? So the changes to the economic structures in these countries kind of allow the scapegoating of women and LGBT people as a kind of a coping mechanism for traditional working people, almost. And even the elites are tapping into this and using this to their advantage to gain political traction. And traditional working roles have been breaking down, right? So it's not, the man stays at home, the woman goes to work. So even things like that are breaking down and causing rifts. And we can see this, throughout, not just Europe, but across the world, and how that's affecting people's progressive sentiments and thoughts. And then I'll also just say it's kind of interesting to think that, a lot of these countries have smaller diminishing populations of young people, because folks from these countries are just moving west to the UK, to the US. And so there is a lack of kind of presence of young, active people who are willing to create a progressive place in their hometowns, in their homes, which is, I think, a sad thing. Not to say that there aren't brilliant activists in these countries who are standing up against all of this homophobia and sexism, absolutely, and big ups to them. But it's diminishing and it's small, and what we can do is support and give solidarity as much as we can, especially knowing that we're not free until we're all free, basically.
One of the things I keep saying to people, and like I always laugh at the replies, because but if you are anti-racist, then you are anti-capitalist.
Absolutely.
If you are anti-homophobia or pro-LGBT, then you are anti-capitalist. If you are pro-feminism and anti-misogyny, then you are anti-capitalist. It is very simple. To be able to build an equal world, we must smash the thing that brings about inequality, and fundamentally, no matter where you follow the channels, is capitalism. So I'm okay with telling people I'm an anti-capitalist, because it's an easy way of saying I support LGBT people, I support women, I support disabled people, I support everyone. It's an easy way of saying that. You know what I mean? I'm anti-capitalist. I like to eat the rich. It's calm. Don't worry about it.
Absolutely. They're tasty.
Come on. Real talk. But yeah, no, like you're spot on as well. And I think some of the things you talk about are like younger generations moving out of the towns or even out of the countries. You see that as well in the UK, in the smaller towns outside of the big cities. The young people are moving away, they're moving out, and they're taking their what could be called as liberal minds into the big cities, and that's why you do see more of a left vote in the bigger cities in the UK, and where in a way neoliberalism has created that magnet into the cities. It's also created that hate and hysteria in the smaller towns, just like what you were saying. So yeah, really interesting. So from local to where next?
All right, we're going to Southeast Asia. We're going to Myanmar. So this is a New Internationalist article, Courage and Terror in Myanmar. So I was actually told that the pro-democracy kind of sect of Myanmar called themselves Burma. So I'm just going to use Burma for Myanmar from here on out. But basically, this is a little bit of a complex issue, so I may not get all the details. But general overview, the military staged a coup in Burma in February. And though there's not one catalyst, it could be the ambition of this kind of leading general to just take over, or the military trying to get ahead of the upcoming elections, and so that they have the power to redesign the electoral process, so they're more likely to win. This occurred in February, and it's a devastating time. Basically, activists are being killed, tortured, locked up, and just general civilians are facing the brunt of this. So it's an extremely dire situation, and Burma definitely deserves our solidarity right now. After a military rule for several years in 2015, there was a democratic leader elected, Aung San Suu Kyi, who I think is pretty popular because she was like UN backed and West backed, and it was a very exciting time. And her administration, I would say, was quite neoliberal, but the kind of the worst thing that happened under her watch was basically that same army that is now in power actually conducted the Rohingya genocide against Burmese Muslims, and that happened under her watch. So it really kind of destroyed her reputation. But there is, quite a bright spot in all this in terms of the activists that are on the ground. I'll just kind of take a clip from the article. The protests are reminiscent of Bangkok last year. Crowds led by young people raising 3 fingers in the air, a symbol of resistance that Thai anti-coup activists had adopted from the Hunger Games films in 2014, saying you mess with the wrong generation. And that was the rallying cry. The movement was a multi-generational movement, but Gen Z stood out. Myanmar was now part of the Milk Tea Alliance, a collective uniting Asia's pro-democracy activists. They spoke the same visual language. Women marched in wedding dresses and ball gowns, bodybuilders rallied without their shirts, and in this way, humor and a sense of almost festivity was channeled into the early protests. And I think this is really resonating here in the UK when you go to Black Lives Matter protests, when you go to Kill the Bill protests and the Palestine demonstrations. There are drums and there are people dancing, and people are excited and ignited by the passion that they feel for these causes. And I think that is just so beautiful and brilliant. And I love to see that it's happening in the US and the UK and in Burma as well, to know that despite all the dire situation that folks are facing, they're finding ways to remain strong and positive and kind of use comedy as like a fuck you to the to the regimes, which I think is absolutely brilliant. So just to say, there is actually something we here in the UK can actually do, because international countries, we need to recognize the pro-democracy group as a legitimate government. So we can encourage our own governments to be doing this, right? We can do that here in the UK by writing to our MPs, which is a very simple thing to do. And then also similar to the BDS boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement for Palestine, we can boycott companies funding the military regime in Burma. And I just want to caveat by saying the pro-democracy group isn't perfect because it doesn't give the Rohingya Muslims the kind of same status, but it is definitely a better way to get the persecuted minority to have a voice by having that bit of democracy. And also, we can't forget that the different statuses and levels of people in Myanmar is a direct result of colonialism and a direct result of the West's kind of influence and, leaders of Myanmar being puppets for the United Nations or other Western bodies. So, it's not always the case that we should do our best to support the self-determination of folks in those countries.
Do you know what? Thank you so much for covering that in such detail. Like it is such a complex issue, especially when you don't know the history. Over here in the UK, we obviously get, in a lot of countries, but talking specifically here, we get some of the story, some of the time. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I see stuff on Twitter and there's very educated people talking and I'm like, and Twitter's not the best place to go, what are you talking about? Like, you know what I mean? So thank you so much, Kulsoom. Really appreciate that. I just got to, I was getting so into listening to you. I forgot to shout out. So obviously, first of all, Union News, that article was by Tim Lazard. So definitely check that out. Big up, Tim. The Open Democracy article was by Claire Provost and Tatev Hovanesyan. I'm getting better with my reading. When you go on TV, you have to do this stuff. And then obviously the New Internationalist one, that's from Preeti Jar. So thanks so much to those journalists as well for spreading those stories. Again, they are partners of Bywire, and they're just doing fantastic work, man. Hit up their websites. What I say to a lot of people as well is, because I know you do this, Kulsoom, don't you? You have all the Bywire partners as your favorites on your browser, don't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that no, real talk. Because like last night, our guest Dev, he was talking about making sure that people share articles from independent media on their social media accounts rather than sharing the likes of BBC or whoever else it may be. And, you know, here's a perfect opportunity. You've got free articles. You can share a link to this show with those articles and say to people, yo, check out that brilliant explanation from Kulsoom and read more about it in the independent media partners. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button, the like button, the follow button, the donate button. You know what it is. Everywhere. Kulsoom, thank you so much for hitting us up tonight. I really appreciate it. I will have a chat with you in just a moment, but I'm going to wrap up the show, so I will see you soon. Boy, the guests get better and better and better, and then when they come back, it's like they just bring the power. So Kulsoom, we're definitely going to be calling you back on the show soon, and like we've got a whole jam-packed week ahead of us. Tomorrow we're going to be hearing from the Justice for Belly Majinga campaign. There's some updates there on what's going on with those guys, and we're going to continue with bringing you the best and the most talented in independent media news. Now, guys, listen, I started off the show on a very serious note, and that isn't to say that we can't still have fun, we can't still enjoy ourselves. What is the world without a bit of laughter and a bit of fun? We spoke today about the arts and making sure that the arts get the support they need, but also thinking about ways in which we can support the arts when the government don't support them, because we're in some really, really uncertain times. Like, we thought last year was uncertain. Look at where we are now, and it's going to continue like that. And the reason why I started the show the way I did is because I want to encourage people to really get together, stick together. Don't get too close, like physically in this kind of heat. That's not cool, because it's like being on the tube in London. But mentally, let's stick together. Let's look after each other, and let's start caring about each other. So I want to end this show with some love, some peace, and some solidarity to everyone out there doing good things in this world. Big up all of the people behind this show that help us keep it going. Shout out to Jess and Gucci Claudia who help keep the show going. You know, I'm spreading the love all over the place today. I'm feeling it. I'm loving it. Big up our guests. We had Kun from the COP26 Coalition, Kulsoom from LARAF, and obviously send me some love in the like button. You know what it is. This is On the Bywire, brought to you by Bywire News. Hit that donate button. Peace, love, and solidarity, my people.